All right, guys, Kish my world, top of the morning guys. It's May 4th today, and it's a beautiful day. It's a Saturday, and being May 4th here in the beautiful country of Namibia, as you can see, very beautiful country. It's a day that we call, it's a holiday, it's a public holiday, and it's a day that we call here the Kassinga Day. What is the Kassinga Day, man? Kassinga Day, man, commemorates a day when there was a huge suppression or atrocity caused by the South African apartheid regime, which was majority Boers, or the white people, against a group of Namibians who had gone to seek exile in Angola, in a place there called the Kassinga, and that's why the Kassinga Day is. So basically, it's a national public holiday here in Namibia to just remember the Kassinga massacre. That's what they call it. It was the Kassinga massacre, and in this particular day in 1978, yes, approximately how many people were killed? A lot of people, because it was a massacre in general. Yeah, it's I think approximately 600 people were killed, including women, children, men, combatants, non-combatants. Namibia really has been through a lot, you know. And on this particular day, man, the South African Defense Force, which is of course the majority apartheid rule, they sent a lot of airstrikes, drones, paratroopers into Angola, where the people who are resisting the apartheid movement here in Namibia had gone to seek refuge. And these people were so brutal because they did not spare anyone. They did not spare the women, they did not spare the children, they did not spare the men. Literally, they just massacred and butchered everyone. It was in the morning of May 4th, 1978 when this happened. And that's when the South African defense ran an airstrike in a camp near the village of Kassinga, which is in Angola. And then it deployed also paratroopers to continue doing or carrying out the atrocities that had happened. The camp was inhabited by some group of people called the SWAPO, which was like the defense forces from around here. And the sympathizers also were killed, and their families in all these things. So 165 men, approximately 294 women, and 300 children were actually killed during this attack. People, like, it depicts women, children, men, and they were killed because why would the white South Africans want to kill them?
Because they were planning to get freedom. Yeah, and they didn't want us to get freed.
Yes, because at that point South Africa was colonizing Namibia. Yeah, Namibia was colonized by South Africa at that point. Oh, okay.
Not the whole of Namibia. Walvis Bay.
Oh, Walvis Bay side. Okay. Oh, sad. These people died. Kassinga massacre. So, as of this day, May 4th, every year the government of Namibia just sets aside this day to commemorate those unsung heroes who were severely butchered by the regime of the day in that time. And remember, guys, after the Germans left here, South African actually colonized Namibia. So most of the things were run by the South African apartheid regime, and that's why all this happened, because they were seeing a resistance coming up and they had to deal with them the best way that they knew. Of course, in those days they just had to butcher everybody, kill everybody, and just make sure none of the survivors and their families are alive, and their sympathizers. So today we celebrate this beautiful day in this beautiful country, Namibia, the Kassinga massacre, which is May 4th. Guys, let me tell you something about this country. I love this country so much because it's called the land of the brave. The people in Namibia have been through so much. I don't think there's people in Africa who have been through as much as the people here in Namibia. Literally, they have suffered a lot in the past because of the colonial regime, the apartheid regime that came along, all these things, man. It's crazy. And they have built themselves to be the beautiful hub that there is. You can see the streets here, they're almost empty as I walk. And it's a holiday, it's a weekend. Actually, it's Saturday and it's holiday. There's no people in this country. Majority of the people, the reason or some of the reasons they say there's no people, why you cannot even walk in the streets like this with not many cars coming to distract you. There's one behind me now. The reasons could be vast. It could be that the people have very good family planning, but also it could be the harsh climate of this country. But even some places like here are very inhabitable, but most of Namibia is inhabitable. But one of the reasons, major reasons why I believe the population declined is because of the genocide that had happened in this country. People never talk about that a lot. It's not well known, but it was a very serious crime. And I'm going to talk about it because I think we need to revisit this and just understand what happened in the early 1800s, late 1800s, early 1900s, when the Germans colonized this beautiful country of Namibia. So, the history as it goes, correct me if I'm wrong, I might miss one or two facts, but comment down below if you know some of it. The Germans, of course, came to, occupy this country, colonize it in the scramble for Africa. The Germans landed here. And the Germans were one of the most brutal people, actually, to colonize Africans. So, of course, they came with the advanced weapons and religion and brainwashing and everything and tried to take over. And, of course, they had the best for themselves. They kept the best places and everything. But what's so screwed up is that they forced the local people to become slaves in their own land, become slaves in their own country. And let me not use the word slaves, but they used to make, like, for example, the local people to do labor in their own country, forced labor, so that they could work and not get even paid and develop the places where the Germans or the whites wanted to live and claim it as their own. So there was a lot of things happening, all this forced labor, mistreatment, just harassment, beating, whipping, and segregation. So some people had enough. They were like, no man, you guys came, you found us here in our way of life, so it's time for a change in Namibia. We will not continue with this. And one of the tribes which did this was a tribe known as Herero, if I'm not wrong. I hope I'm not butchering the pronunciation. I'm gonna just look it up to be double sure. Yes, family. They were called the Hereros, the first people to organize the rebellion. So the Hereros had enough, and they were led by their leader, a very famous and powerful warrior called Samuel Maherero. You can see him in the museum how he looked like, long live, even though he left. Samuel Maherero and his people were like, this is enough, man. We cannot be forced laborers in our own country. Something has to change. They were being killed, they were being prosecuted, forced to work in their own lands, just to develop the colonizers. Then they were like, no, enough is enough. They organized a rebellion. The Herero people, very strong, brave people, and they raided the settlers. And in this commotion and everything, about 100 settlers died, lost their lives during this whole thing. And that was the beginning of a huge clash between now the German settlers and the African or the local Namibians. So the Germans decided to retaliate, of course, and they came into battle with the Herero people. And of course they had advanced weapons, advanced technology. They knew so much about what they were doing in war. Germany was really doing a lot in the world. And of course they cornered the Hereros and pretty much beat them very, very seriously. But at this point, the person who was leading the German army, the commandant at that time, he was a bit of a reasonable man. So they sat down and had dialogue about peacekeeping in this country. And they decided, you know what, we can settle on ABCD, these terms ABCD, so just to try and come to an agreement. Of course, it was not a favorable agreement because the white man always wanted to get the best of it. But as the negotiations were going on, there was ceasefire and everything. The government of the day in Germany was like, nah man, we are growing impatient. These people have killed our settlers there, about 100 of them. And the current leader or the general of the Namibia, not the Namibian, the German troops was not acting as fast as they wanted. So they sent in a different commandant. I'll write his name here, I don't remember. A very, very brutal and serious guy. And this guy was not joking around. He was not there for the show. He was not there for negotiations. He was there to finish. He was there to clear. He had one purpose in mind. His purpose was to clear the Hereros, all of them, men, women and children. And so he came and he raided, despite all peace negotiations, all peace talks and everything. The new commandant or lieutenant was a no-nonsense guy, very, very brutal, and he had in mind to wipe out the entire population of the Hereros. So they rounded them up, forsook all peace negotiations, and he started killing them. And immediately he killed about 5,000 Herero people at once. This was too much for the Herero people, who decided like, we have now to escape, because they didn't stand a chance against this brutality. Their weapons were too advanced. So they ran away, seeking exile in Botswana, which is the neighboring country, towards the Kalahari Desert. But it was not an easy journey. The Kalahari Desert is very harsh. There was, most of them died on the journey there, escaping. They had families with them, so they died a lot. But also this guy did not stop. He kept pursuing them. He catches them up, he kills them, killing them mercilessly, hanging, killing, shooting men, women and children, poisoning their waters and everything that they did. And unfortunately most of them died. And by the end of this first phase of the genocide, about 80,000, if I'm not wrong, Hereros lost their lives. Or rather, let me say 80% of the Herero population was brutally killed, murdered. Just all types of atrocities were done. And 80% of the Herero people disappeared off the face of the earth. Only a little 20% are the ones who managed to be alive. So when all these Hereros were killed, at least in 1904, there was, the lieutenant's orders were at least withheld, and they were like, okay, now no more killing, butchering and finishing them. But the ones who were caught were arrested, sent into concentration camps. Of course, that was Germany's favorite thing, where they lived in deplorable conditions, just very, very poor conditions, living together, forced labor, sexual harassment for the women and everything, really terrible. But then in 1905, another group of very brave men called the Namas also stood up in an uprising, because it was too much, man. We cannot keep suffering in our own country. So the Namas also decided to do the same thing that the Hereros did, and they started a resistance movement. And this one was a bit longer. It was about 2 years, but majority of the casualties were the Namas. They were being killed left, right and center, and they kept on with the struggle, but unfortunately they could not match up to the Germans. So majority of them also were captured, put in together with in the concentration camps with the Herero, and there they were just subject to everything, forced labor, sexual violations, you name it, being killed. And also another massacre happened with the Namas, and approximately 50% of the Nama population was killed. So in total it was about 100,000 Hereros, which constituted to about 80% of the people, and 30,000 Namas, which is approximately about 50% of their population, were wiped off the face of the earth. And it was not in a good way. Men, women, children, they were being hanged by the strings, by the ropes. In the museum I visited yesterday, I could see that how it was. Small children being shot point blank, people just being tortured, killed, everything, you name it. That has been the rough past that has been this country. And you can imagine after all that, later on when Namibia actually now managed to break free from the German colonizer, then they were colonized again by South Africa, which is the apartheid South African government, which also did like the Kassinga massacre, the one that we're celebrating today. So Namibia has really been through a dark past, but it has risen to be what it is right now. Gained its independence from the South African apartheid government recently in 1990. So it's a young country, but it's doing really well for itself. The only thing is, after you've been through so many genocides and atrocities and everything, the German influence became very, very strong in this particular place. And that's why even if you walk down the streets, you will see a very, very deep inclination to the German architecture, the housing, the roads, the names, the language. Actually, this country, it was exploited so much that they don't even have a national language. The national languages here are English, the ones we're speaking, which is international. Majority of the people speak German, and the vast majority speak Afrikaans, which is the language of the apartheid government, the white colonizers, the Boers, because they were forced even to learn that in schools. They were taught mathematics in Afrikaans, taught biology in Afrikaans. Even the young population. Yesterday I met a young lady, she speaks Afrikaans and English. So they have different tribes here, you know, the Hereros, the Namas, the Himbas, but they do not have a common language like most other countries. So most of the time they will end up, when they meet up, speaking, if they are in the same tribe, they will speak the same language. Otherwise they have to switch to either English, Afrikaans or German, but there is no original national language from here. Yes man, African series has really taught me a lot. Yeah, and we forget about the past, hopefully. No, we don't forget. We forgive, but we don't forget. The German government has finally accepted that it committed a genocide, killing. It's one of the biggest genocides in history, which nobody talks about.
The German government finally recognized the atrocities it had committed in Namibia and officially acknowledged the massacres as a genocide.
Wir bezeichnen heute diese Ereignisse jetzt auch offiziell als das, was sie gewesen sind, ein Völkermord. Wir bekennen uns damit auch zu unserer historischen Verantwortung.
It was not given attention, you know, like I don't want to use their name because YouTube is censoring too much, but the ones who were being butchered by the Hitler, you know, yeah, those people, that one is well-known history world over. But the Germans, not yet, nothing. No, the Namibians, nothing. But it was a very, very big genocide, and it was very, very serious how the people were being killed and everything. So I hope you guys have learned something. If I made any error, any mistakes, kindly comment down below, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just doing this from the top of my head, from the history that I know. But if you're a local, you probably know better. And it's a homogeneous society right now here in Namibia. Everybody is welcome. The Germans who refused to go home after independence, the white Boers who refused to go home, they're welcome here. They live in harmony with the people. I don't know how they behave nowadays towards the local people, but I'm hoping everything is good and they are accepted and welcome. Africans are very welcoming people. Despite everything, they still welcome you and give you a warm hand. So guys, that's been a short story, and I thought I should tell you this because this day is a very special day here in the Namibian day, the Kasanga massacre day, Kasanga day, so that we can at least understand the history and everything that went by. Top of the morning, Kishma world, Africa will rise again. See you guys in the next one. Peace.